Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Alain, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Let's jump straight into it. What
Thanks.
got you into the game? My pleasure. What got you into the game of cracking the leadership code?
Great question. So I would say it's probably curiosity. So I would say if there is a through line looking back in my career and in my life and even into the early childhood, I've always been very interested in people. What makes them tick? Why do they do things that they do? As we were talking before we got on air, my mother is an immigrant. And so sometimes feeling betwixt and between two worlds, like not quite feeling quite American, but definitely not feeling European. Where am I? How do I fit into this? And then trying to facilitate my way out of understanding that. And then went on. My father's family were musicians, so a lot of performing artists. I studied that. I was a violinist for years. I then went to drama school, trained as a professional actor. And I share that because in that way, you have to hold up the mirror of life to yourself, and you are your own instrument, learning about human behavior and psychology. And from there, I went into basically arts and education work, doing educational training and consulting, and then moving from educational training and consulting into corporate training and consulting. And that was back in 1997. So I've been doing that in the business world for nearly 30 years now. So all these things led to why do people do what they do? And I think it's looking for patterns. I'm sure you find this with your consulting as well, Guillaume, is that people will go, oh, this problem I have, I think it's just me. And I say, your problem feels unique to you. It's not unique to me. And so for me, it was just the repetition and the pattern recognition over the years of what do leaders have in common? What do the great leaders have in common? And what do the poor leaders have in common? How could I distill that down to its essence to help people to accelerate their learning curve to become better leaders earlier in their careers?
Very much aware of what you're talking about, and I call it the special snowflake syndrome. We think we are, a special snowflake, but actually many people have been in our shoes, will be in our shoes, and are probably in our shoes right now. And it's about finding people who've been there, done that, and helping people like us move forward regardless.
Yeah.
So, okay, a bit of curiosity to a question here. How do we crack the code of leadership? How do I become a better leader?
Okay. So great question. I like how you jump right into give me the biggest value add up front. I love
Oh,
this.
yeah,
Oh yeah. So I'm going to share a very simple model, and this is really it. And
sure.
actually, I'll share it by way of a story, actually. And I think the story you'll hear, it's sort of archetypal. It's about a guy I met. His name is Matthew. Matt works for a retail company, and he was promoted from being a store manager to a district manager. And I met Matt because Matt was one of the 100 district managers coming to their annual conference. And so I asked my client, who is the CHRO, if I could speak to some of the district managers in advance, because I was giving the opening keynote at the client conference. And they said, sure, because Matt is the #1 top ranked district manager. And so when I met him, I said, hey, Matt, I hear you're you're the #1 top ranked district manager. Have you always been such a high performing leader? And he said, no, actually, I was not at all. The first year I got promoted out of 100, I was ranked 84th. Wow. Second
Great.
year, I was ranked 84th. Second year, still. And so I said, what happened? What changed? Because now he's #1. And he said, I thought my job when I was a store manager, I was very hands-on operational. And so what I was really good at was doing. And in fact, I was such a good doer. You know what happened? They promoted me, right? It's the classic story. You're a good salesperson. You're now a sales manager, right? You're a good consultant. You're now the manager of the consultant team, right? And it's a different skill set. And so he floundered. He struggled. And all he knew how to do was more effort. And so he thought his job was to be the fixer in chief, just tell people, do this, fix this, do this, fix this. This is wrong. You got to fix this. Let me tell you what I did when I was in your shoes. Do this, fix this. And it wasn't working. And then finally, after about 2.5 years, he had what he called his hit bottom moment. He realized, I can't do this anymore. Maybe the problem isn't all of them. Maybe the problem is me. And so he got some help and some mentoring finally. And then he changed his approach. So let's say you were one of his direct reports and I'm him. He'd say like, hey, good morning, Guillaume. How are you? How was your weekend? And he'd talk to you as a person, not as store manager 73. Right. And then he'd pull out the metrics and say, here are our metrics. What do you think, Guillaume, we should do? And then together they co-create a strategy. And when he started doing all that, everything shifted and everything changed. And so what Matt learned from all this was that the key to hitting his metrics, his targets, was to stop focusing on the numbers and start focusing on the people, because it was the people that were delivering all those numbers, right? And if you think about in any business, including a consulting business, think of everything that we measure. Everything we measure is only a lagging indicator of the behavior of a person. And so how do we crack the leadership code? First of all, we recognize that as much as we think we're in the consulting industry, or if we're not consultants listening to this, we're in telecommunications or pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, that is our secondary industry. Consulting is not our primary industry. Our first industry is we are in the human being business, because everything gets done in and through people. And so the model to crack the leadership code, there's three things, and they're three concentric circles. And it's all very simple. And I'm a big fan of simple because simple scales. Complex does not scale well. And here are the three circles. So the core circle, it's about connection. How do we make people feel connected, that they feel valued, they feel seen, they feel respected? Turns out the metadata over 25 years would say the number one thing that makes people more engaged and more productive at work is, do they feel valued and cared for by their immediate supervisor? Now, look, I'm a New Yorker. I'm as cynical as they get. If there was ever a soft and fuzzy metric, that's it. Right? So valued and cared for. And it's true. So that's the first circle, is connection. The next circle is communication, is that great leaders realize that the default setting for interpersonal communication is not understanding. It's misunderstanding. And they put guardrails in place to avoid misunderstanding and misunderstanding. And they're smart about it because they realize, why is that? It's because we're human beings. That's why, because no one else lives in my head. And the third piece is around collaboration. What can I do as a leader to design environments where people can do their best work and thrive? Great leaders do that intentionally by design, and poor leaders do it unintentionally and unconsciously by default. So to answer your question, how do we crack leadership code? Connection, communication, and collaboration.
It's crazy how when you start treating people like people, you grow. That's mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing and remarkably simple.
So it is. And so I love this. We're just gonna go down the rabbit hole. So that's what I genuinely believe we've been trying to do in our own company together with my co-founder Hussam. Now we are in a specific time where things get extremely busy. We're very short on time. And what you're describing here was, I'm sure it works. I'm certain of it. Sometimes you just don't have the time. And now the question is, okay, but well, you have to make time if you want this to work. But how do you, a store manager, right, or director of this brand, they're probably solicited everywhere. Taking the time to sit down with a team member and be like, hey, so like, tell me, review your own work. What do you think? Okay, why? Did you think about that? Show me, how did you do this? Okay, do you see something wrong here? All right, what can we do better? How can we make sure this doesn't happen again? How do we fix it first? And how do we make sure, what process? This takes a tremendous amount of time versus what you did here is wrong. Here is the right way to do it. Now you need to do that, period. Much more faster. Much faster, whatever the correct English is. How do you, so I guess you get hit with that objection all the time.
All the time.
What's the right way to tackle it?
All the time. Well, first, I'd say the first way to tackle it is a mindset change. And one of the challenges that, pretty much, I imagine that your example and most of the people listening, if you're in a leadership role, not only are you trying to lead other people, you're also trying to get your own individual project work done, right? So most people are in this player/coach role where they're trying to do both. And so, yes, they want to coach their people, but could you make it fast? Because I got all this other stuff I got to get done, right? Which is what you're saying. Is how do I get everything done? And so the first mindset shift is we can't look at this time as this expense. Like, I don't have the time, you're wasting my time. We have to look at it as an investment, right? Because There's an old, I don't know if there's a French expression that works this way, but there is in English, which basically it used to be, I'll say the kind of the gender neutral way now, which is teach a person, give a person a fish, feed them for a day, teach them how to fish, feed them for a lifetime, right? And so what you're suggesting is it's a lot faster. Of course, it's much faster. Here's a fish, just do this, do this. Here's the fish, go, right? As opposed to it takes much more time. However, the dividends from investing in that are huge. So that's the first piece. And again, if I was listening to this right now, I'd be like, thanks for the platitudes. Now what? So here's the now what. The other piece on this is leaders need to be much more explicit around time and time boundaries with their people than they think. I call it sometimes time boxing. So I'll give you an example. So one thing we said earlier is that it's important for leaders to check in with their people and connect, right? Connect. So I teach leaders a very simple check-in process. It's 3 questions. And I'll share them all with you right now. You can write them down if you're listening. Unless you're driving, don't write them down. So the first thing is for 3 questions. And when you train your people, you can have them answer all 3 questions in less than a minute. The first question is, how are you feeling right now? And by the way, the answer cannot be, I'm fine. How are you? No BS answers. So number 1, how are you feeling? Number 2, what's on your mind? Right? It can be personal, it can be professional, big, small. What's on your mind? Third question, if it's a one-on-one, it's how can I? If it's a group, how can we support you? How can I support you? How can we support you? And let people know you have a minute to answer this question. And you have to model this yourself. People get good at this, but if we don't time box things, things will expand to the time it takes. It's interesting. I remember early in my career, I'm about 26 years old, and I met a guy. His name was Dennis. We met for a kind of a mentoring. He was a mentor, older than me, coffee date, as it were. We met somewhere. And I remember sitting down with him, and he said, Alain, it's really great to meet you. I'm really happy to be here with you. I just want to let you know I have a hard stop in 30 minutes. And I have to say, Guillaume, that blew my mind. You know why it blew my mind? Because no one had ever modeled that kind of clean, clear, not judgmental, healthy boundary of just, this is how much time we have. And it's always amazing to me how we get into meetings and someone goes off on a tangent and everyone feels inside the internal dialogue is, we're down a rabbit hole, we're on a tangent. But no one says it like, hey, because it takes skill and an art to stop and say, hey, folks, we're going down this. Our agenda is not about this. Is this a good use of our time? Should we renegotiate our agenda? Right? And it's hard because it's very difficult to facilitate that process and be in it at the same time, right? So I facilitate lots of strategic offsites for teams, and they always say like, we tried to do this last year on our own and it crashed and burned. It's like, yeah, because you're inside the jar, right? You can't read the label from inside the jar. I love that expression, right? One of my mentors taught me that. And so we need perspective. And as leaders, we have to hold the space of time, because if we don't, no one is. And that is a dangerous proposition.
It's the famous, oh, but I tried this already. It doesn't work for my industry. Well, did you do that? Did you do that? Did you look at this? Did you invest in that? Did you do it? Oh, yeah. No. Yeah, well, that's maybe why it didn't work.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that tangent, Alain, and we're going to get back to it.
Yeah, no worries.
But I need to ask you about the business of consulting, because that's what we and people are here for as well. Yeah. So although I think we've already alluded to that, what specific problem would you say you solve right now with the people you work with?
Yeah, I solve the problem of building people's leadership capacity. So a little background data on this. So only about 20 to 23% of leaders lead effectively. Okay, and that is not by them, by their own judgment. That's by the people they lead, right? So we have this massive leadership gap, and that gap has created a huge cost. That cost goes from the top line to the bottom line to everything in between, ranging from engagement to retention to customer satisfaction to profitability to lost sales. So what I do is I help develop capacity of leaders to lead more effectively so that you can improve all of those different points of view.
So, I mean, this is gold. So I feel we're going to take many tangents, but that's the vibe of the show anyways. Yeah. What does leading efficiently even mean?
Well, what it means is that people are able to willingly, notice I say, and the reason I say willingly, come along on the journey with you. So this is my definition of leadership. Leadership is the art of getting people to willingly work with you towards achieving a shared purpose. So if you're a leader in an organization or you're a founder, you have a vision of what you want to achieve. And if you could do it all by yourself, you would, but it's probably bigger than yourself. So here you brought a bunch of other people along and you want them to go on this journey with you. And you don't want them to go on this journey with you because I say so. That's why. That is the old school command and control style leadership. The new school style of leadership is much more what I call the facilitative mindset. It's much more about being facilitator in chief. So, how do you bring people to willingly? Because when people want to do their best work and feel supported to do their best work, they do their best work. I've yet to meet a person who said, I do my best work when my boss is really stressed and angry. Right. And so, what leadership, effective leadership is about, it's about getting people to come on this journey to achieve the results. To use consulting language, it's how do we move from current state to future state, right? And how do you do that as quickly and as effectively as possible? And there are certain things that are going to help you get there faster and more effectively and better, and certain things that are going to slow you down and keep you from getting from current state to future state, on the people side.
I like that. Who are you helping specifically? Leaders, I get it, but like what type of leaders, what organizations, what industry, like who benefit the most from, having a 20 to 23% good leadership score to, I don't know, whatever it ends up being after you help them out.
Sure. Well, here's the interesting thing. I am completely industry agnostic. I'd love to say I tend to work in this industry. I would say what ends up happening is in this industry, we'll call it the learning, development, leadership, consulting industry. It is a very word of mouth industry. So you have all your websites and stuff, but people aren't generally surfing the internet and checking chat GPT, like which consultant should I hire? It's who do you know? So it's very still a word of mouth industry. That may change maybe over time, but right now, and it has been for a long time, it is also a high trust, high relationship, slow sales cycle business. And so for me, it is a question of how do I build relationships with people over time, offer them things maybe at free, just value add, just things, services that or offerings in the marketplace that I have that they can be a part of to get to know me over time. And then maybe it's a week or a month or a year or 5 years or even 10 years later, like, oh, here's a project and we'd like to hire you to do this. And that is sort of the nature of the work.
Does make a lot of sense. So how do you, because you're industry agnostic on top of that, what
Mhm.
has worked for you in order to attract, or actually, now that I'm thinking of it, one question before that,
Mhm.
who's the decision maker who decides to hire you? Is it the leader themselves? Is it the head of HR, the head of
Mm.
people, head of learning and development? Who decides to get, Alain
It's a
Hunkins in?
This is a great question. So it depends on the size of the business. So if I'm working with, let's say, a small to mid-sized business, it might be the CEO slash owner slash founder, right? Because they are the
Okay.
decision maker. In a large organization, it might be a business unit head who has their own budget and P&L to do that. In a larger organization, it might be the someone within human resources or the head of learning, chief learning officer, or the chief human resource officer, or VP of HR. It all depends on the size of the business and how many gatekeepers there are in terms of involved in decision makers. So as I imagine many people listening, one of the things and the skills to figure out is if I'm having a first initial prospect call, is this person somebody I need to be talking to, or do I need to go, who makes the decisions around here? And being very explicit. And over the years, I have gotten much less shy about asking these very explicit questions because I realize all you're doing otherwise is you're wasting time, everyone's time. Just in terms of like, oh yeah, like, and that was the whole, I wanted to be polite. I wanted to be nice. Maybe I'll build a relationship here first, but everyone's time is a premium, like on both sides. And so it's just, and people know that you're trying to sell something. People get it, that you're trying, yes, we can call it whatever you want, but at the end of the day, there's going to be some kind of a transaction of here's a service, and you're going to pay me money at some point. So who do I have to talk to about this? By the way, I wouldn't say it this the way I'm being very matter of fact with you. I probably would be a little bit
Yeah,
more, consultant,
a bit of
polite,
a pinch of
professional.
salt.
Yeah,
Yes, of
diplomatic. Yeah,
course.
exactly.
So speaking of diplomacy, well, this is not going to be diplomatic, but you've worked with you've worked with leaders in 42 of the Fortune 100 companies. So we're talking about enterprise level companies, right?
Yes.
Which
Yes.
I guess is obviously going to be, maybe the sales cycle is a bit longer,
Hmm.
but the ticket is usually a bit higher. You can charge a premium for enterprise level clients.
Yeah.
Why? Okay, pardon my French. Why bothering with smaller businesses if you know you can help Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies who are going to be paying a premium because they have many leaders they need to be taken care of? Like,
Yeah.
why that
Why?
positioning of being industry exactly? Why?
Makes total sense. Great question, by the way. Yeah, I mean, if I saw it from the point of view of look at these enterprise level clients, if I could just work with a couple of them, that would be great. The challenge with many of these enterprise level clients is the level. I used the word gatekeeper before. There can be so many gatekeepers that make it very difficult. I almost use the word impossible, but very difficult to actually be able to meet a decision maker and kind of even get in. I'll just give you an example. So one of my clients that I worked with a few years ago, we became good friends, and they let me know that, again, at the end of the day, I'm a vendor. Like in their world, they call me vendor, right? I'm a vendor. And they said that, yeah, they get anywhere between 7 to 12 emails a day, of just people like me saying, hey, can I come talk to you? Hey, can I? And so they just they put up a firewall. There's like, and so to answer your question, ultimately, it's the gatekeeping. If I could get in, and again, I'm still trying to figure out new strategies. I know we might be talking about what are some things within my business. I would love to figure out ways to kind of get into more of those through those gates in different ways. Right. And I'm still trying to figure out all the various best strategies to do that. I have a few strategies now that I'm working on, but that's definitely an issue, is this gatekeeping at the larger enterprise level clients.
Super interesting. So, talk to me about those techniques that you're putting in place. How do you and how have you been throughout the years marketing yourself, branding yourself, so that people come to you, or when you knock at their door, they are like, "Oh yeah, this is Alain. He helps with developing real leaders in
Hmm.
organizations." What has worked for you to get those prospects and potential clients' attention so far?
Great. So I would say that for me in my work and in my industry, it's really taking on the identity of thought leadership, right? And so how can I use thought leadership as a magnet to pull people to me, as opposed to me just emailing them and pushing me like, hey, hire me, I can help you, I can help you. It's more like, let me keep demonstrating value, different things that I can do. And so, for example, for the last 4 years, I have been a leadership strategy columnist for Forbes.com. So I write articles once a month in that. And so if there are people that I know, like say it's like someone that I've met somewhere, a prospect, hey, here's an article I think that you might find interesting based on our conversation, like write this, or and trying to find things that might be useful to them. So, or I run a series of leadership masterclasses where I'm interviewing other thought leaders, kind of like what we're doing here. And so I might send out a link. Hey, I'm running this live leadership masterclass. If you'd like to come, here's the link to it. No charge. It's just welcome. You're part of my greater leadership community. So I have this leadership community with, thousands of people in it. Not all of them come all the time, but the idea is just continuous thought leadership. Like I'm bringing new content out in the marketplace that I'm trying to tailor it for people in ways that are valuable. So that is some of how I'm doing things. I'm also trying another way I work at this is if I have certain connections in certain industries, does it make sense for me to speak at an industry association event? So a colleague of mine is very involved with the National Apartment Association, right? So this is like the multifamily apartment rental units. He's a client of mine, and they have this giant conference called Apartmentalize. And so I asked my client, I said, hey, and I wanted to present at the conference, but you need to have an internal person present with you. You can't just be external. So I said, hey, let's do this together. And he said, sure. So we put in an application. We just put it in a month ago. We still haven't heard back yet. But it's one of these things of just looking for what are strategic avenues to continue to build relationships. And I'm always thinking long term now. I mean, that's part of in my business. It's got to getting the flywheel. So like, where's this week's and this month and this year's revenue? But I don't know where it's all coming from. I'd love to say it's predictable. Like people are ordering like a SaaS service, and I know that I have X number of subscriptions, and next month they're going to renew, and 95% are renew. So I have predictable income. in my work, it's not that predictable necessarily. That being said, I do have a few kind of, we'll call them kind of benchmark clients that I have longer term strategic projects with, where I've developed and delivering and designing their leadership academy. And so it's ongoing. So every year I'm delivering X number of trainings for them that I've designed for them. And they really see me as their value added trusted partner. And so that's kind of my baseline, kind of to kind of keep the lights on, as it were. And then beyond that, it's always trying to figure out how can we grow and develop beyond that. And that's always just planting seeds, just spending some time every day planting seeds, not knowing if they're going to bear fruit or not. But that the bearing fruit part is not in my control. Is the planting seeds is definitely in my control.
Okay, this is gold. There are a few things I want to double down on here. So first of all, B2B coaching consulting is all going to be about authority and being perceived as a subject matter expert, all whilst being trusted by the industry and the people we are trying to help. So I think that long-term thought leadership play is the right one. And many people forget the first part of this, which is long-term. And more and more, especially nowadays with AI and the fact that anybody can claim anything on the internet and become an expert in any field on LinkedIn in 2 prompts. I think aiming for that long-term play takes time to pay off at first, but that's how you get it to compound and get those real deals through the door. But being a thought leader is definitely the right approach to it. Now, what I'm wondering, Alain, is how do you move from this, from initial awareness, from proposition, from getting people's attention to SOW, letter of engagement, we rock and roll? What does the sales motion look like for you? Whether that's for those Fortune 100s or smaller businesses who might be faster and less gatekeeping to get you in?
Sure. So I'd say a couple things. I want to go back to one of the things you said about establishing thought leadership. I'd say the other piece within this, and I want to say this goes without saying, but it doesn't go without saying because I've seen too many people not do this, which is I think as a consultant, and I think about this for me, particularly as a leadership consultant, because I'm asking leaders to model integrity, accountability, connection, communication, collaboration. I have to model all those things myself. I have to basically be the living, breathing role model of my work. And so I share that because simple things like showing up to meetings on time. When I say, being super explicit about, I will get this back to you, like can I get this proposal to you in by next Tuesday, end of day, your time. Yeah. And then making sure that you follow through on your agreements. I think that it's so important to build that level of predictive level trust. And you start doing that initially from showing up on a call or doing your pre-call research. I mean, let's face it, today with the internet and AI, there's so much work you can do to get to know your clients before you show up to the call. And of course, they're going to be impressed that you took the time to be able to figure that out. So all of which to say is that's all. I want to say that goes without saying, but I just wanted to say it. And then the other thing, going to your question, which is, so how do we move into the SOW phase, as it were? For me, I would say there's a couple pieces. One is I have to, when I show up on the call, after I've done all this research, I have all my notes, and then I have a blank page. And then it's just, I come in with this attitude of curiosity, and I want to get to know them and their business. And part of that, so I would say earlier in my career, when I was feeling more stressed and like, I got to close this, there was much more of a attachment to outcome. I now get on these calls with, I want to have I know this is going to sound, I do want to close the sale, but I don't feel like I need to close the sale. That's the difference, right? Is that this mental gymnastics? Like in the past, it was like, I got to close this. And I think that neediness comes across, right? And I don't need any client. I don't need one client. It's not going to make or break me at this point. So it's like, great, if this works out, great. So, and I think just this relaxed, like, how can I help you? So for me, it's coming in with curiosity. And then the other piece is, I think it's really useful, and this is a skill that I have, and hopefully people listening, you have or continue to develop, which is when people share things, as you say, like, what are your biggest challenges? Generally, people, their first pass at that question is, well, there's this, this. And so I'm listening for what are the integrated themes that I can wrap together, synthesize. And so what I'm hearing is this. Is that right? Oh my gosh, yes, but you said it so much better than I was saying. So being able to give that back to them and then getting really clear, and this is going to be consulting 101, but one of my favorite questions is, So this is where things are now, aka current state. If we could wave a magic wand, how do you want things to be different? Right? I'm sure this is one of your questions all the time, right, Guillaume? So the
I
sense
feel I'm
of,
listening to my partner back at PwC, but yeah, please
yeah,
continue.
yeah, and I learned this stuff years ago, but it's such a great question.
But this is
If we
good.
could,
It
if we could
works.
wave a magic, because it works, because all we're trying to do is have people go from imagine current state to future state. What's in the way? And if we could get you there or on the way there, what's the value in that? Right. And
Yeah.
being able to do that. So trying to understand that. And then the other piece that I'll add in. So I think about that in the SOW, because, and also a lot of times when people are feeling the pain of the current state, wanting to get the future state, they're also coming into this call with, the consultant who is ultimately a vendor. They're still thinking of this as transactional. And again, not my first rodeo. I know that a day-long training or a half-day training is not going to change the world. And so I want to already start planting the seeds about what sometimes I call aftercare, right? So beyond this first intervention, this first engagement, what can I do or what can you do? But something needs to happen to support this in the long term, because I don't want your money. And actually, you don't want training from me. What you want is what you think training is going to give you. So always
Yeah.
talking and thinking in the language of the benefit and the value to the client, as opposed to what the transaction is that we're trying to engage.
I love this. Once you get that client through the door, how do you retain them? A big part of consulting is this, right? There is the hunting, and then there is the farming. Same in B2B coaching. You get through the door of that Fortune 100 company or any business.
Yeah.
You help their leaders achieve better leadership skills, and the team improves and morale improves, and like you deliver on this. How do you transform it into a recurring or reoccurring engagements to expand on that relationship, and not just having to
find new ones all the time?
learn exactly, and having to catch new
Yeah.
fish, since you learn how to catch fish?
Exactly. No, that makes a lot of sense. To your point, this is a challenge, right? And I think so. Where I have found it most useful is to build personal relationships with your clients. Your clients
Mhm.
are people, right?
Yeah.
And some of us are better at that than others. And I'm not saying schmooze and small talk. I'm saying like actually be curious in getting to know them, and then also being able to have the kind of relationship where you can check in like, hey, how are things going? And it doesn't feel like a pesky salesperson, right? How do you build that relationship over time? And that is planting seeds. And hey, I was thinking about you. In fact, I was just thinking, in fact, I wrote it down earlier today. I was thinking about there's a few clients that I want to reach out to. It's Thanksgiving week when we're recording this right now in New York. And just like what an opportunity to say, hey, I was thinking about you. I just want to say I'm thankful for getting to work with you this year. Who doesn't like that? It's just, does it take a little bit of time? Sure. Is it going to lead to anything? Not necessarily, but I do feel that way. And why wouldn't I express it? Right. So one of the things that when I coach leaders on is so often we think, oh, I value this person. I appreciate this person. And inside, I totally believe you do. However, there's a difference between inside believing you do and making the effort and taking the action to show appreciation, to show value, to be overt and explicit at developing those relationships. And I'll say it's hard when you're thinking, but I have all these other things I have to do. But I mean, you probably know better than me the stats on being able to retain customers and getting new ones. I mean, you're way better off trying to invest in the people you're already working with than trying to scour the world for brand new people that you have no relationship with.
Amen to that. I mean, I literally have nothing to add. It's building the relationship with the leaders that you're helping, also with the
Yeah.
decision makers within that company for sure. But at the end of the day, getting that referral and relationship going is what's going to ensure long-term business, and it's planting the seeds. And on that one, there is something that pops to my mind right now. It's also a numbers game, right? It's like it
Yeah.
needs to be the interactions, the behavior needs to be genuine, but it's also about, I know that if I plant 100 seeds on average, I will get 5 deals out of this. Then the
Yeah.
question becomes, how can I plant as many bunch of 100 seeds, all whilst remaining genuine and caring about the seeds that you're planting? But I think it's also a numbers game at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, it very much is. And I think it's very easy to get sucked into doing other activities that aren't seed planting activities that feel important, or maybe not even important, but feel urgent in the moment. Like, I'm doing this and makes you feel. I'll give you an example. So I have a number of different consultant communities that I'm a part of, and a lot of people that I really like. And I could spend a lot of my calendar inviting people and being invited to meetings and just, hey, how's it going? Like, like I like we're friendly, but you know what? Me hanging out with, like, chatting with consultants, like, how's your business going? How's this? That's an hour of time that I'm not planting seeds. And I think one of the things that we have to do, as much as we want to put things on the to-do list, we also have to make a to-don't list, right? What are the things that are going to go on my to-don't list, and really major on the major things? And that's hard, because there's a part of me that feels good about talking to those people, and I enjoy that. And it's, as one of my other mentors said, legends do the work, and you got to do the work.
Yeah, it's funny. I never heard of the concept to-don't list. Somehow I heard of and I have one, which is the shit list. So you have the to-do list, the things that you need to do, and then you have the shit list, which is all the shit that you need to handle and take care of. And it just piles up, but you need to take care of it eventually.
Yeah.
But to-don'ts, I'm definitely going to work on this one.
Good.
Alain, I think we've already, one of the common questions of this show is like, hey, what do you feel challenged with? Where are you stuck right now? I feel we've already kind of talked to this, and because we are going over time, but I like it because this conversation is great. Yeah. I'm going to skip to the last one directly, which is, what is it that you're looking forward to in your business? Next 3 to 6 months, what are you looking forward to implement or kind of unstuck to get the business to the next level?
It's so interesting, right? Because, like, at my core, I am much more kind of like creative content thought leader, as opposed to business operations, like grow sales. Like, that's where I came from. That's what I do. So my first impulse, like, what am I excited for? I was thinking about some of the new content that I'm playing with. I'm thinking about an outline for a new book. So that's the first thing. I think on the business side, I'm getting rid of some not very useful opportunities to free up some more time to actually go back and revisit a bunch of clients that, I have to practice what I'm preaching here, right? Is to go back through. So I'm looking forward to being able to go back through and reconnect, check in again with some of my former clients in the next, like, as the new year starts. It seems like the new year is always a good time for that, because new year, new possibilities, just, again, coming from this place of inquiry and curiosity. So I'm definitely looking forward to checking in with a bunch of people around that too.
The sound of that. Alain Hunkins, ladies and gentlemen. Alain, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
Sure. Really easy. If you can spell my name, go to my website. It's www.alainhunkins.com. I will spell it for you. It's ALAINHUNKINS.com. And you can also, if I can be of help to you and your organization, there's a couple of links there to my calendar. If you want to set up a discovery call to talk about how I can be of support to you, be happy to spend some time helping you out.
We'll put all the links in the description. What I can say for sure is that you've gained one connection out of this interview, at least. Me, I just added you on LinkedIn, although you already have 99,166 followers. Well, make it 167 now. Thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thank you, Guillaume. It's been my pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time. What's that, Alain?